What's going on, guys? It's LolElekktro, and I'm here to give you an in-depth guide on the fundamentals of building a team comp and how to decipher when it is time to commit to a team comp. This is probably the most important skill to be able to do in the game, and is also one of the most challenging for the majority of players. My brother recently started playing TFT, and after a few nights of teaching him the game, I realized that the core fundamentals of building a team comp is something worthy of a guide. I won't go extremely in depth on composition pivoting and how to pivot properly, because that will require an entire video of its own. If you want a guide on how to pivot properly, let's get this video to 50 likes and I will make it for you. Now, let's get into the basics of building a team comp. First thing you want to do at the start of every game is grab yourself a 2-cost unit. Grabbing a good item such as recurve bow or BF sword is also important. Don't worry about who the unit is as long as they are a 2-cost unit, since you should at this point have no idea what comp you're going to run. After the first minion round, you'll either get 1 gold or an item. If you get 1 gold, you want to sell your unit and purchase all 5 of the units if they are 1-cost units. The reason you do this is since you aren't committed to one team comp yet, it is best to grab all different types of units so you have the most options. However, you won't always have enough gold to buy all the units, as sometimes you'll get 2-cost units in your cards. If you don't have enough gold to get everything, the ideal thing to do would be to select any pairs that are available and prioritize those over anything else. Never leave a pair unpurchased in these early levels. Just a disclaimer, I don't always sell the first unit, because if I, for example, get a Zed off the carousel and I get a pair of Kha'Zixes in my cards, I don't want to sell my Zed yet, because I could potentially go Assassins with the Kha'Zixes I just got. Just read the situation based on whether or not you think it is worth it to sell your unit. But remember that you are not committed to a comp yet, and you want to give yourself the widest range of options. If you can end the minion rounds with 0 gold and close to a full bench of units, that is the ideal scenario. This will most likely overwhelm a lot of players because you'll have a lot of different units with a large variety of synergies. For the first few rounds of PvP, it really comes down to RNG. Just put in any 2-star units you may have, regardless of their synergies, as 2-star units are stronger early game than synergies are. If you don't have any 2-star units, just put in your best synergies and see how the rounds go. Even though you currently have a few units in, does not mean you are committed to them right now. Before I continue, I will let you know what to do with the items that you got early. I would only put my items on my units early under these circumstances. First, being if you have the components for any one of the S-tier items. If you don't know what the S-tier items are, you can look them up on tftactics.gg. The second being if you have 1 or more 2-star units going into the first PvP rounds, because then your goal should be to start up a win streak, and you will need items for that. If you did not get fortunate with items or units, no need to worry, just play to minimize the damage you take and go on a losing streak. Being able to realize whether you are going to go on a win streak or a loss streak early is very important. Building an early economy is extremely important to building a team comp, because you should be looking to grab a lot of units in the early game, therefore you'll need a lot of gold. If you need to purchase XP on the second PvP round because you need to ensure a win streak, do that. If you know you have a low chance of winning rounds early, just put in serviceable units and go on a loss streak. For the first carousel after the PvP rounds, you almost always want to go for items over units. You still aren't fully committed yet, so just select the item that makes the most sense with what you already have. I find that I usually have not fully committed to a team comp yet until either at Crux or right after. You might be wondering how I know when to fully commit to a team comp, so let me quickly explain the ways I know when it is time to commit. First, you want to look at your 2-star units if you have any. If you have more than 1 2-star unit of the same synergy, it should be your current frontrunner for the comp to run. Second, you want to look at all your additional units that are not 2-stars and currently don't really synergize with anything. What you want to ask yourself when looking at these units is, do any of these extra units on your bench have a synergy worth investing in, and do they have late game potential to synergize with your current 2-star units? For example, let's say I have a 2-star Nidalee and a 2-star Warwick on my board, and a couple of Nidalees on the bench. There is a strong inclination for me to go a wild comp, since I have 2 strong wild units already. The next thing I want to look at is, do I currently have any units on my bench that would go well with my wild units? For example, I see that Nidalee is also a shapeshifter, so I can look to see if I have any Elises or Shyvanas to potentially go for wild shapeshifters. If I don't have any of those units, I can look at Warwick's secondary, which is Brawler, and see if I have any Blitzcranks, Volleybears, or rek'sais to potentially go a Brawler comp. These are the questions you should be asking yourself every time you go to purchase units and work towards crafting a comp. The most important thing you can do in the early game that is associated to building a strong comp is you should buy multiple units that have the potential to work together in a comp, but don't commit to one until the comp reveals itself to you. If you're constantly thinking about what units you can turn into a comp, like in the example I gave you, by the time Krug round comes about, you should have a general idea of what you are going to run. When you see the best possible comp reveal itself to you, sell all the excess units you no longer need and play the game normally, working towards furthering your comp strengths. Now remember that you can always commit to a comp earlier than the Krug round, as sometimes you get extremely fortunate early and get a lot of good units that synergize well together. The idea with giving the baseline for not committing to a comp until the Krug round is to remind you that you should not decide what comp you are going to run until it is painfully obvious. When that happens in the game may vary, but it should happen to you at some point in every game. Getting early 3-cost units can also be a determinant to what comp you want to run, because since 3-cost units are harder to come by, getting them early might make it easier to know which comp to run. Knowing how to decipher when the right time to build your comp around early 3-cost units is something that goes more into pivoting, so I'll save that for another video so that I can go more in depth to that whole topic. The last tip I can give you about how to know what comps to run is a pretty simple one, and that is to look at what all the other players are running. This is something that even the best players get lazy at doing, but if you have a few early assassins and you see that 3 other people are also picking assassins, it might be a good idea to try to find another composition to run, otherwise you'll end up competing with them for the same units. Scouting is extremely important and can give a lot of clarity to what tends to be a rather confusing early game. Before I say thank you, I want to give you one final reminder that being able to see potential comps and having the foresight to know what is best is something that comes from experience and being perceptive in your games. It may take 100 games for you to know every comp and when it is best to go for them, but if you keep practicing, you'll get better at it, I promise. Also, if you're a relative noob at the game, looking up the top team comps on tftactics.gg or watching streamers build a comp in the early game can be very useful sources on your journey to improvement. Besides all that, I want to thank you guys for all the feedback I've received on my recent videos. I feel proud of them and how they have turned out, but there is always ways to improve myself as an educator and content creator, so to all those who have given me constructive criticism, I appreciate it. My next video will most likely be on how to properly pivot comps in a game and when the best times to do so are. So, if you want to be notified when that video goes live, make sure to click that subscribe button and ring that little bell. But until next time, you've been electrified.